Jesse, cue it up. Everybody in their places. It's time to go.
Are we rolling? Yeah, we're rolling. Okay, let's get it done, everybody. Let's go. Hey, Ragan, how's my hair? Is it okay?
Poxy, they can't see you.
All right, come on, let's go. It's toots, people. Poxy, start on page 4. Get the lines right this time.
All right, I got it this time, I swear.
4, 3.
Come on. It's time for the Ghost of Hollywood.
Welcome back to the Ghosts of Hollywood. I'm Poxy Leonard here with Miss Ragan, and it's time to kick off our 38th episode as we prepare for tonight's party.
What are you on?
Nothing. What? Are my eyes red?
No, but you sound crazy.
I don't sound crazy.
I thought we were opening a football game for a second.
Oh, yeah, I like that. I mean, I can see it now. I play Madden, you play Summer Roll, or... Well, who you want to play?
Who?
Nah, never mind. Anyway, tonight we have the one and only Simon Prast online with us to discuss his recent work in the role of Ernest Miller in Ty West's third installment of his X series, MaXXXine.
Having also appeared in the first film, X, as Maxine Mink's televangelist father, Simon returns in his role, but this time the stakes are heightened, as he takes on Maxine directly in Hollywood.
And boy, that doesn't end well for him.
Poxy!
What?
You're gonna ruin the ending!
I think that's gonna happen anyway. I mean, look at all these notes from the Roundtable production session last week. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but at least make them wait till the end.
But if they've seen it already, then they know he's gonna get a tip blown.
Damn it, Poxy!
What? I'm sorry.
Never mind. The X series also marks Simon's first credits for U.S. cinema, with the majority of his acting career taking place in Auckland, New Zealand, where he currently resides.
Yeah, that's why we had to talk to him on the phone.
Poxy!
What?
They already know that!
So who cares? I didn't tell him again. We don't talk to people on the phone a lot.
Well, after that one time you...
No, I don't want to talk about that one time, Ragan.
For the sake of time and relevance, I'll let it go.
I appreciate that. Sweet of you, Ragan. Continue.
Breaking out as a prominent television actor in the 1980s, Simon was then best known for his role as Alistair Redfern on the New Zealand sitcom Gloss.
Yep, but it would be his pivot to the Auckland Theatre Company where he would found and act as director until 2003.
And as before, during, and after, Simon would continue to perform on television for various roles in several programs, along with making various feature film appearances, most significant of those being When Love Comes.
And then we find ourselves here and now, where Simon has the unfortunate fate of joining us on The Ghosts of Hollywood.
That's only true because you're here.
No, wait, you mean because we're here?
No, I got it right the first time.
Whatever, Ragan.
When we return, actor Simon Prast will join us to discuss his career and recent work on MaXXXine. Stay tuned because you're listening to The Ghost of Hollywood. Interested in television or movies?
Then check out The Ghost of Hollywood for the best in cinema-related podcast at theghostofhollywood.com or wherever you get your podcast. Welcome back to The Ghost of Hollywood. I'm Poxy Leonard here with Miss Ragan, and joining us tonight is our friend Simon Prast. That's right. Simon is a distinguished actor and director from New Zealand, celebrated for his wide-ranging contributions to both the television and the theater. He is currently starring as Ernest Miller in Ty West's new movie MaXXXine, continuing his dynamic presence on the screen for that series after his initial performance took place as a televangelist, which is essentially the same role, just not defined yet under a name, in the original movie X, which was the first installment of the X series, right? So, Prast initially gained widespread recognition for his role as Alistair Redfern in the 1980s hit New Zealand television series Gloss, a show that remains an iconic part of the nation's television history. Now, beyond his screen work, Prast served for many years as the director of the Auckland Theatre Company, where he shaped the city's theatrical scene with his visionary leadership and dedication to the arts. All of that said, I'd like to welcome Simon onto the show. How are you this evening?
I'm doing very well. Hello to you from New Zealand, down under here.
Oh, no, it's early morning where you were at, correct?
We're just coming up to 10 a.m. in the morning. What are you early afternoon? Yesterday.
Yeah, we're behind you. We're a little farther back on the planet. So we'll go ahead and take things back. You mentioned in a previous interview, and I know you actually have a copy of Arthur Miller's, or of a signed copy of Death of a Salesman about Arthur Miller, don't you? And that was a pretty big impact in the beginning of your career, right?
I do. Well, when I was at high school, we did Death of a Salesman in my last year. And I was very lucky. I went to a very good school, had a very good drama department. So a big shout out to all the drama departments and all the schools, anyone listening in there, because it really was the coming into contact with this play at school that set me on the path of acting. And it was really just encountering the power of Arthur Miller's writing and the power of his words and experiencing the effect that it could have on an audience. And, you know, I was 17 years old at the time, and I didn't really know what to do with my life. But just in that moment, standing on stage, I was playing the lead character, Willie Loman, and just to experience the power of Arthur Miller's fantastic writing, to channel him, I guess, and onto an audience, and to experience that. It was a life-changing experience for me, and a lifelong love of Arthur Miller's writing, and indeed of American drama in general. I just think it's so full, and its impact on an audience is so so strong.
Do you have some similar like feelings or experience for any of Tennessee Williams' works?
I played Mitch in Streetcar Named Desire, and I played Brick in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. It's a similar. It's I guess another part of the great American writing. Very powerful as well. I actually directed both of the plays, Death of a Salesman, Arthur Miller, and A Streetcar Named Desire. And for what he puts the Blanche Dubois character through, it's so devastating for an audience to experience. Just extraordinary writing, you know, and wonderful to come in contact with when you're young, you know, and early in your career.
You're the founding artistic director of the Auckland Theatre Company following the bankruptcy of the Mercury Theatre Company in 1992 and its subsequent acquisition by Mercury Playhouse Ltd. Now, what led to your involvement with the theater, and what were some of the challenges you faced during your tenure?
Well, after I left high school, I did a law degree. But all the time that I was at university, I really wanted to be an actor. And so in my final year at university, with a law degree, I became an actor, and I ended up working at the Mercury Theatre. And I was working there the night that the receivers actually walked in, and they threw everybody else into the street, and they closed the theatre down because it had run out of money and was no longer, profitable and a going concern. And this was a shocking event for Auckland, because it was a very big theatre here, and really the only one. And it was a huge injustice, and it ignited something in me. And I guess I applied some of my law school experience there and how to organize, if you like, some order from the chaos that we'd been left with. And from the ashes of that theatre, the Mercury, we built the Auckland Theatre Company. So some good did come of it. And I'm very proud to have played a part in that renaissance, if you like, of theatre in Auckland by rebuilding the Auckland Theatre Company.
Now, like saying you have a background in law, a lot of lawyers do work with like acting coaches. Over the years, have you had to kind of go back over to ever coach anyone in the law area of being a better actor? Because I know there's a lot of acting involved in that too.
Sure. It was a big thing for me, and I think I would have been a very good lawyer, but I had to be honest with myself, and really the thrill of it was the performance in front of the jury, and I couldn't really, I'd have another human being's life in my hands if I was a lawyer, and so I dedicated my life to the performance aspect of it. But ironically enough, I did get to play perhaps the greatest lawyer of all time, Atticus Finch, in To Kill a Mockingbird for Auckland Theatre Company. So, I felt rewarded in my legal sense. And the very first play I directed, actually, excuse me, was 12 Angry Men, another great American play.
Oh yeah, there's so much character study in that. How did you do that?
As with any play, as with any film, I think that so much of it lies in the casting, and I was blessed to have a cast of 12 actors who just went for it, and the writing is such a jewel of theatre writing, you just play it in real time, and it unfolds before an audience, and it is so gripping for them, and just the big legal arguments that are played out before you, and the climax of it. It's so fulfilling for an audience, and we did very well with the play. We actually transferred it to a bigger theatre. We did so well. So, I'm very proud of that, and it was very fulfilling for me to be able to bring those two strands of my life together, the law and theatre.
Now, you worked to direct and produce over 60 plays in your 11-year tenure from 92 to 2003 with the Auckland Theatre Company, right? So how demanding was this position, and how did you find balance between your role at the ATC and your career as a screen actor at that time?
Sure. Well, I look at my time at ATC really as being a labor of love. As I say, it was born from the ashes of the Mercury Theatre, and the sense of injustice, again, I guess a reference back to law, that it ignited in me. It really did fuel a desire to not let the negativity and not let that win. That something good must come of that. And it took us 11 years, but over the 11 years, I learned. I'd never run a theatre company before. I learned what was involved in that. And I guess, if anything, I have the skill for being a troubleshooter and a problem solver. And when you're running a theatre company, I think that those are two of the greatest skills that you can have. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about, the art form. And, after 10 or 12 years, it was actually 11 years, I was ready to hand over. As a young person's job, I think it does take every ounce of passion that you have, and I had a lot of passion for it. And I don't have any children of my own, but I look back at the Auckland Theatre Company as a child, and I have a parental pride for it, if you like.
Well, I would imagine there's quite a bit of manpower and planning that must go into each play, and not to mention the salaries for cast and crew hands. So what was the primary funding for the productions at the theatre?
Well, in the first instance, you have to earn the money. So we earned most of our money from our ticket sales. But we had very strong, we've got a very good public arts funding here in this country. And our Arts Council provided seed funding for us, annual funding. And our local city council provided seed funding as well. And we would go out there and we would earn sponsorship. And it was all part of the business, if you like. I always thought that Auckland Theatre Company was a mission statement as well as a company name, is that we served Auckland, our business was theatre, and we ran it as a company. So that means we had to adhere to all of the business, disciplines, but work on achieving our artistic mission. And achieving that balance, I guess, is one of the great mysteries of running any arts organization. And it was always intriguing and totally engaging for me to work on that, and to also to pay actors and to pay artists money. I think that that's really the most important thing when you're running a theatre organization, is that's what you exist for, is to provide opportunities for people to work and to further their own careers, and you feed into the great pool of talent in that way. You play your part in advancing the art form, if you see what I'm saying.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and especially in somewhere like Auckland, where this is like the centrifuge of that artistic center. It seems like it's really critical to keep everything working and kind of fluid.
Well,
with it.
That's right. And one of the things I think of you receive public funding is that you have a public responsibility, and so that we did a lot of work in arts education, and providing opportunities for young people to have access to the arts and access to engage with the arts, and those sorts of things I think are important roles that the arts play anyway. But I saw it as our responsibility because we were in receipt of public funding.
Now, this eventually, like during your tenure there, you worked and directed at the Auckland Arts Festival, right? Now, how challenging was it to bring the vision of New Zealand's arts as well as works from other regions into a festival setting?
The challenge for that is I was headhunted from Auckland Theatre Company to run the Auckland Arts Festival because it was a new organisation and it had been encountering a bit of headwind with its, how can I put it, its artistic choices to date. And so they brought me in as the guy who'd set up Auckland Theatre Company with not a lot of time really to put this event on. And one of the things which I had learned at Auckland Theatre Company was what a wonderful and underestimated city that I lived in. Auckland has become really the capital of, the Asia Pacific. We have a very strong Maori, a very strong Pacific Island, and a strong Asian influence here. So it's really a multicultural city. And when you offer it an opportunity to display that artistically, we have there were many, many rich opportunities to draw on. It was the very first one, so as with Auckland Theatre Company, I had the great blessing of being the very first director of the festival, and having to make a few decisions about what form it should take and things like that. I was very happy and very proud of the city that we got there in a very limited time frame, and that it's gone on to become an annual event for the city 20 years on. So I'm very proud of the time that I spent with it.
Switching gears for a moment, you became well known for your role as Alistair Redfern in the television drama series Gloss. You once made a joke to an interviewer that the only difference between you and character Alistair was that Alistair was much more wealthy. So, with that joke in mind, how did you prepare to play that particular character following your successful audition?
Well, when you're an actor, I think, you approach every audition, you look for the parts of yourself that are involved in playing the character. And there were many parts of Alistair which, if I was honest with myself, that, I could easily play that part. Except, the character had much more money and had much more reason to be such a spoiled little brat. But, when you're playing a character like that, it's so much fun. And, it did become a bit wearying after a while, but the character drove a beautiful black Porsche 911, and I became sort of attached to that car in the public's mind. But of course, Simon, the actor, drove like a Mazda RX-4 or something. Whenever I'd pull up at the lights, people would recognize me, and they'd always line down the window and they'd say, "Where's the Porsche?" So to play a character much richer than yourself in a very small market does have its disadvantages. But again, it was a huge opportunity for me. It was my first big television job. And, if I'm honest with myself, in those early days, I always wanted to be famous. And that fulfilled that need in me very early on. The show itself was designed to be a new influence in New Zealand television, to be something that was sort of frivolous and fashion-oriented and bitchy, if you like. And it was sort of shocking and new for New Zealand at the time. And it was great fun to be a part of.
So it sounds like, from reading back on it, that there's like a pretty organic growth and history around the show. I know it didn't live. It survived. You did 3 seasons of it, correct?
It was history making in many ways. And, I have to pay tribute to the show's creator, a woman called Janice Finn, who, in a very male-oriented environment, made a case for this show and succeeded so amazingly. And Janice was very, very brave in her casting, is that she knew what she wanted and she knew what she was looking for in the actors she was auditioning. And, she saw something in me that, clicked with the part. And so I was very, very lucky to that extent. And the people that she assembled, we've all gone on, this is 35, make excellent contributions to the industry. So I think it's a testament to the original creator of the show. And, I think it inspired a lot of people to, to go on and be brave in their artistic choices. Everything doesn't have to be earnest and worthy to be worthwhile, if you know what I'm saying.
Totally makes sense. And I mean,
you can do things for fun.
And like you said, many of the actors, like yourself included, you all went to work together again on Shortland Street. Now, given that you were able to reunite with the previous cast members and find some familiarity on set, what was it like to step into a new role with the same group or a similar group?
Well, let me say it's always fun to work, so that's the first thing.
Yeah.
Shortland Street was a new beast for us down here. It was a 5 nights a week soap. Whereas Gloss had been a 1 hour a week soap. So it was a very different beast. And to jump on that new show, I played a different character. And if you like, he was the first villain that I had played, Snake in the Grass nurse, who arrived in the Shortland Street, clinic, seemingly to be a nice guy, and then set about being exactly the opposite. And over time, the writers brought me back twice, becoming ever more villainous, until finally I'm chasing a couple of characters around a yacht, and I handcuff them to the mast of this yacht. I inject them with sleeping, juice, and then I set the yacht for Chile and get off and let them sail away. So the character did end up being a supervillain, and super fun to play.
And that, so this is where, because you have a history, I know we're going to talk more about it in a bit, but you kind of take on a history of playing villains. So this is where it begins for you, is with the villainy, so to speak.
Yes, I guess so. I mean, Alistair and Gloss, it was not a villain, and I wasn't really cast as villains, and there was certainly in Paul Churchill, the character's name was, he was certainly a villain, and it was fun. And the revelation of the character's evilness was, that's fun. And in general terms, I think it's always fun to play the villain because you're the one that does the acting. When you're playing the goodie, you're always the one that gets, you have to do the reacting. So, if you want to drive the action, be the baddie.
With your film and television credits, along with your extensive career in theater as an actor, director, and producer, which medium do you find to be more challenging, and in what ways are they similar?
I think both have their challenges, and both have their, their what makes them special. As you get older, learning lines is an issue, and so when you have to take on something like a play script, so long as you've got enough time, I think that for me anyway, that's one of the big challenges when going forward as an actor, is to have enough time with the script so that you can have it in your memory so much that you can forget about it and you can feel confident about it, and step into rehearsals and make the most of rehearsal time. And when you're on stage, you have a direct, relationship to the audience, and what you do is what they see, and that's a thrill, and it's also can make you feel quite sick at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's a great responsibility to be an actor on stage and for other people to shut up when you talk. And the times when I've been best on stage are the times when the writing has been, when you work on a Shakespeare play and you come into contact with Shakespeare and his ideas and his words and have to have the honor of speaking them, it's such a transcendent experience. Similarly with Arthur Miller, as I said before, to be able to say those words and to be taken to those places, it's such an honor. And I think that that's one of the things that in both medium, the writing is really what you connect with. What I love about working in film was the camaraderie, I guess, of working with the cast and the crew to create a moment in time, and the sudden mustering of energy to get it, The rhythm in theatre is sort of a very slow build-up to a performance at the end of the day. Whether you're filming, it's sort of like you're on, and then you step back again, and then you make another go, And so it has a different rhythm and a different thrill. Another thing about theatre, of course, is that it's gone once it's done, and it only exists in memory. And that has its own power. I can remember plays that I saw 30 years ago, what a gift that is. When you work on film, you have a record of your work and of what you all made together. And I know watching MaXXXine, I was so, it was such an amazing time in my life. And to have a record of that, as with Gloss when I was, 35 years ago, to have a record of that time, it's hard to watch when you're young, but it's also amazing to watch. And so they're both, as I say, it's wonderful to work as an actor. And both of them have different opportunities and different challenges, but it's always a thrill to work.
Now, I mean, we'll talk a bit more about MaXXXine in a minute, and I know we don't talk too much about the visual aspects of it, but aesthetically, it's a beautiful film, and so it's probably great to be able to see yourself through such a prolific medium, in today's world. And looking back to the past, why do you say it's hard to see yourself when you were younger? Is it what is the kind of the inflection point there for you now viewing that?
Well, you learn things about acting as you get older, and, it's always, it's sort of moving in a way to look at your younger self and to all of the innocence, really, that you have. And, when you're very young and your career is beginning, it's such a special time in your life and all that sort of thing. When it all lies ahead of you, all of the hope and the expectation and the dreams, and not having to experience the reality of the industry and having your dreams crushed, which is, it's a necessary part of the profession, if you like. And if you can't handle having your dreams crushed, then go find another job, because, as many jobs as I've had, I've auditioned for many jobs more. And I think it's your ability to be happy with a good audition and to know that you give of the best of yourself when you give it. That those are the things you have to live with as an actor, and those are really what it's all about in the long run.
All right, I mean that makes sense. Sticking through the punches, and I mean you're a good example of that. Because you're still doing a lot of big things, and you've had a very long career, and you've done a lot of big things in different departments, and you've done things that are interpersonal and things for the community, and you've seen different mediums of it. So I think I'm not I'm obviously not. Haven't done any of those things myself, so I don't have something to speak on, but seeing it as an outside viewer, it seems like it would be, if you stick with it, rolling with the punches allows you to kind of transcend with your self-understanding of what you really want to be, if that's what you want to be.
Oh, exactly, and to not define yourself in any way. The role in Gloss, for want of a better word, he was a pretty boy, and to embrace that while you've got it, flaunt it. And then when you get older and, you can take on a more menacing form, if you've got it, flaunt it. And, that's how I think, you have a career, and a career of a time, is time is your friend, and even though I have laughed and wondered at times how quickly one goes from playing, a son to playing a grandfather, it seems to happen in a blink of an eye. But the great thing is, hey, I can play grandfathers.
Now, you performed as Stephen in When Love Comes Along some time ago now, but this showcased a different side of your acting range when compared to, your earlier, more traditional roles as a villain or in the theater. Now, can you share what initially drew you to this character and how you prepared for the role, and subsequently what it was like to perform the part?
One of the great things about we actually lost the word along, and the film's title became When Love Comes, was that we all knew each other so well. I went to university with Garth Maxwell, the director, and knew him very well. And we worked together on an earlier film called A Death in the Family, which was New Zealand's first depiction of someone dying of AIDS.
Okay.
And so again, it was sort of a milestone event, if you like. And I was so, I was very proud to have played a role in that. And so Garth and I had known each other for a very long time. And I knew Rena Owen personally, and I knew Sophia Hawthorne and Nancy Brunning personally. and Dino Gorman, most importantly, who played my love interest and offsider in this movie, When Love Comes. So we all knew each other very well, and because the film traversed very intimate, material, intimate spaces between people, it was wonderful that we could be so, so fluid with each other and so close to each other so quickly. And I think that, I look back on that as being, we had, I guess, a week up at a beautiful beach up here in New Zealand where the last part of the film was shot. And a happy ending happens, if you like, which is the wonder of the film. And I look back on that particular week as being really a golden week in my life of, working on a film and, of just working with wonderful people on a project, again, that we all felt very passionate about.
You all shot it in a week?
No. This one particular.
Just the one scene. Okay.
The last part of the film. We shot on location north of Auckland, a beautiful part of the country.
How long was shooting for this film?
I guess we were about 4 or 5 weeks. Not a particularly long schedule. And of course, the great thing about that was that it got selected. It got selected for the Toronto Film Festival, so we all got to go to Toronto, which was fun.
Was that your first time? Was that your first time over there in Canada to the festival there?
Definitely. I'd never been to Canada before. I ended up going a bit later with the Auckland Theatre Company to an arts seminar in Banff, which is a very, very beautiful part of the world. So, and I must reference this back to Auckland Theatre Company and Auckland Festival, is that I got to travel the world and see some spectacular pieces of work and meet some amazing people, And so those things that you meet personally along the way, they're so enriching.
No, that's what I was kind of curious when you answered the question I just wanted to ask. I didn't want to deviate, but so the theater did travel a lot. Did you do a lot of traveling performances, or what else was going on around, when you were abroad?
No, we didn't tour. The thing for me at Auckland Theatre Company was, because I was on a learning curve, was I was keen to see like how the Sydney Theatre Company did it, how the Roundabout Theatre in New York did it, for example. How the National Theatre in London, there are theatres around the world, that I could learn things from, the structure and, the forms of delivery, if you like, the marketing, those sorts of things. But so I was on a learning thing, and then later you would go and you'd look at work with an eye to buying the rights. And also you'd go to meet agents. One of the great episodes of my life, again referring back to Death of a Salesman, was when I directed the play for Auckland Theatre Company in 1999. In New York, I signed the rights for the play in the office of Arthur Miller's agent, a very charming woman called Bridget Ashenberg, who said that once I've signed, would you like to speak to Arthur? And I said, well, yes. And so she got him on the phone right there and then, and I ended up speaking to Arthur Miller on the phone. And it was what an amazing thing. It was like talking to God, let me tell you.
What did you talk about? What did you talk about?
I felt a bit embarrassed. I asked him, was the play autobiographical? And he said, no, it wasn't. And we spoke briefly around that. He was very, very charming and understanding. I was a bit starstruck, I have to say. But he explained a little bit about it, and then he wished me so well, and he thanked us for doing the play. And, it was, talk about religious experience. Talking to Arthur Miller on the phone, for me, that was one of them.
That's pretty wild. Yeah, that's very. I had read recently the autobiography of Marilyn Monroe. One of them, I think Donald Spoto had done it, and he talked about how Arthur Miller, was just so resilient to his work. Like, his work came first. There was no compromise to that. So I think it speaks a lot to his integrity. So it's amazing you were able to speak with him and then, of course, get to put on the play. I bet does it feel full circle, like when you were younger and then getting to do it later again and all of that coming to fruition?
A total full circle. And, you get sort of, like radar, you get moments where it bounce back in your life where I'm in the right place at the right time. And for that moment, the synchronicity of that moment, what it meant to me, it was a very empowering moment. And, there's some moments where you just have to have a smile on your face. And getting to talk to Arthur Miller, that was a great moment.
Now, change of directions to the sinking of the Rainbow Warrior, which is historical to New Zealand's history, and then of course being all the intervention with the Greenpeace, and I read a lot. I learned about the 12 nautical mileage, to make sense between international waters, where New Zealand has kind of held ground against a lot of nuclear activity over the past years, where it's made a safe haven for itself historically. Now, all of that is depicted in the sinking of the Rainbow Warrior, of course, in some ways when the boat is attacked after by the French Secret Service, and then all of this comes to light in kind of a conspiratorial form. But you actually play a French part in this. Not a big one, but how did you end up playing a French character in a New Zealand movie? How's this happen?
Well, that's what we New Zealanders all had to audition as, and playing one of the the French agents. It had its own appeal, if you like. And, I tried to come up with a French accent that wasn't too outrageous. And, it's based on real life. These two French men basically cut a swathe through Kiwi womanhood, is one of the lines of this particular film, is that they had a wild time down here. And then this particular agent that I played in the version of it ended up being the one who got in the frogman's outfit and attached the bomb to the bottom of the boat. So again, a villain of sorts, but fun to do. And I did have the opportunity of meeting John Voight.
You had to run from him. He was like chasing your ass.
He was chasing me. That's right. That's right. And it was wild. And at the time, of course, Midnight Cowboy is one of my most favorite films, and Deliverance is a great movie. And you can say a lot about John Voight, but those early films are so fantastic. And
oh yeah.
Again, I was starstruck in my life, and I told him so. And to his great credit, he was so charming and understanding and all that thing. And it was fun to meet him.
Sam Neill, Sam Neill's an actor from New Zealand. Was that the first time you had crossed paths? And I know you don't have any scenes together, I don't believe, but was this being a television project? How central was it? Was it significant to New Zealand at the time that it was being covered on film?
Well, because the Rainbow Warrior blowing up in Auckland Harbour, is that all of us had a very strong memory of it, and it happening. And John Voight was a big star, and Sam Neill is local acting royalty. I think Lucy Lawless actually was in it as well. It was a big deal. It was a big deal, and if memory serves, I think that they did quite a good job. It's a big part of New Zealand history.
Yeah, it's a really well done. It's a really well done television movie, especially like some of the night scenes, like when they go down, when they're first taking getting ready to go under and attach the bombs. At the time being shot on film, there's a lot of silhouette and shadow. It's really cool. And then you kind of have like an Alistair character, like where you're like in the bed in the opening scene with the phone, and you kind of wake up gangster, like what's up?
That's right. That's right. As I say, this is what they did, is that they attached bombs and then just had this fantastic old time chatting up, all the women in New Zealand, who they probably told them, I'm a French secret agent, and it was yeah, sure, tell me the next one. But and to my knowledge, I don't think that they ever actually met justice. These particular agents.
No, to what I had read, it appears they did slip through it for the most part.
Extraordinary.
In recent years,
extraordinary part of history.
Yeah, it also discusses towards the end of the movie, it says that they were not brought to much justice either.
Yeah, there's some end credits, I think, to kind of summarize it.
Yeah. Anyways, in recent years, you starred in several television series such as Under the Vines, The Gulf, and The New Legends of Monkey, which has what exactly has reinvigorated your drive to pursue television acting so heavily at this point in your career? And How have things changed since your work on programs like Gloss during the high point of network television?
Well, again, let me say it's always good to work. And I audition for most everything that I'm offered to audition. No part too big or too small. And one of the reasons why I ended up in MaXXXine was because I said yes to half a day's work on a movie. So whatever it is that you're being offered an audition for, my policy is say yes, because you never know. You never know. And one of the the great things about down here in New Zealand is that we do get some great productions. And one of the things, like Netflix, for example, is that they've shot down here recently a history of the Roman Empire. And so you can imagine how much fun I had dressing up as a Roman senator, playing one of the guys that got to stab Julius Caesar. How much fun is that? And how often do you get the opportunity to sit around in like a great big studio commissary with a whole lot of centurions and senators and things like that? It's so much fun. And so to encounter shows with great big budgets, as Netflix has been able to bring, I had a huge amount of fun on a show called The New Legends of Monkey, again playing another villain, this time called Hagfish. Just the different actors that you get to meet and, to get to work with different directors really from all around the world. It's only for the good, and it's part of the fun of being, we don't feel so cut off from the rest of the world down here.
Yeah, I mean, and what you're saying, I mean, it sounds like some of the staging must be really elaborate. So it has to be incredible to kind of see some of this and be on site for it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, when your audience is immortalized across the world, you can afford to really spend the money. And the difference from working on a show, intended for local consumption and something intended for worldwide consumption, I mean, it's enormous. And, that reflects on things just in the more prosaic area. Is when you're working for a company, I did a couple of days work on a show called One of Us is Lying. And just the daily rate, for example, that this American production paid, it's a very good day's work for a New Zealand actor. You can earn a good day's work, and to get like 3 days work on something like that is that that can last you for a month.
That's good, and that sounds good, because I know like sometimes people have the misconception of, and Ragan does some acting, so she could speak to this more than me. But if you're able to get your work done quickly, then and the payout's substantial and the production's clean, that's really where you want to be, because a lot of times you can get I'm sure as an actor, when you get contracted into things that can either stall or aren't so necessary, or they hold you up, and then the pay's not great on it, or you're lagged by time, so it ends up making the payout seem ideal in the front but not in the back, can be kind of a pain in the ass. So it sounds like working on some of these productions that you're in now are really ideal and really good opportunity. Sure,
exactly that. And, as I say, the writing on the shows that I've been involved with, I think it's been, some good character stuff and good casting from around the world, good international casting. And, to have the opportunity to have that in your backyard, it's a small world in that way.
Now, really quickly before we dive into discussing MaXXXine, and then of course X, because you were involved with both of those, the three of T.I. West's new series. Unforgettable, the short film that you did, is a few years ago, and then of course there was Repugnant. These local productions, correct? Or at least I know that it appeared that Unforgettable was. How long did you work on that? And it kind of has a preordainment. You're playing a villain there a bit too, so it's pretty quick.
Yes. 2 days. And I mean, where I can, I like to help young filmmakers. And both of those, I think, involved young filmmakers and just, would you be involved in this script? We'll pay you a gas fare. And, I'm up for it. If I'm available and if the material is interesting, I'm up for it. And you never know. This person could be the next Steven Spielberg, and I'm in on the ground floor, No,
you're right. They always say, well, you never know you're passing on which direction, whether you're going up or down. You're passing them both ways, so you always pay attention to who you're working with. Now it's time for a quick break right here on The Ghost of Hollywood. I'm Poxy Leonard with Miss Ragan, and we are here with Simon Prast discussing his career and his recent work on Ty West's new movie, MaXXXine. That's right, stay tuned, more on that shortly. I'm going to turn things over to Simon and Lennox here for a minute so that they can get all of you filmmakers scared and prepared with another warning from the cinematic dumpster fire universe about the chaos and dangers of filmmaking. That's right, so stay tuned for that. And then, of course, we'll be back with Simon, shortly. So, hang with us there. Hang with us. I'm Poxy Leonard. You are listening to The Ghost of Hollywood.
When it comes to making movies, anything can go wrong. And tonight we're here to discuss that on the Cinematic Dumpster Fire.
Well, hello and welcome back to another segment of the Cinematic Dumpster Fire. I'm your host Simon, and tonight we revisit one of Hollywood's great silent films, and the mainstay for production insurance rates. What? It's true. Anyway, the movie I'm on about is Buster Keaton's 1926 silent film, The General. And while the film itself is more about the triumph of time and place, rather than being outright disaster, it's notable for cinema history for the list of reasons varying from its initial box office performance, the risk Keaton took during production, and the extraordinary tasks set forth to create the film, etc.
You haven't even told us what this shit's about yet.
Good point.
You think?
You want to know what the movie is about or what, Lennox?
Oh, don't turn the tables, Mr. Insecurity. You tell the story, I turn the dials inside the faders.
Right, so, the plot. Yeah, the movie is, well, it's about a train engineer named Johnny Gray, who is turned away from his military service during the American Civil War to maintain his current engineering role on his locomotive, the General. Although a lot of physical comedy hedges on the misunderstandings and lacks of explanation for reasons and events, which gives away a rather elaborate plot.
But ultimately, these misinterpretations of decision-making leave Johnny hung up with his lover, Annabelle, who is under the impression that Johnny just didn't want to enlist.
And then Annabelle gets tangled up with the Union Army in their attempt to sabotage Confederate supply lines, and Johnny jumps into action as a result. Mind you, this is all based around true events surrounding the Great Locomotive Chase, or Mitchell's Raid, which occurred in 1862. Furthering that, its basis for the story was a memoir written by William Pinniger, and here was an unnecessary plot change, but it happened nonetheless. At the time, Keane decided to portray sympathies to the Confederates, thinking the public would struggle to see them as villains.
Now to the point, or the disaster, so to speak. And the production of The General was full of them. But tonight, we focus on the main event, the story of the engineered train bridge collapse Keaton wanted to capture in real time as a real event.
You know, the more I think of it, there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened on set, which should probably at least get a mention here to provide the context for the chaos.
People were saying Keaton was crazy, like real crazy. He did shit like building dams and bridges just to make sure the water flow was just right.
Didn't, the brakeman's foot get ran over by the train?
Yeah, that happened, which resulted in a lawsuit payout of $2,900. But the major problem wasn't with the crazy stuff he was doing. It costed a lot. Accidents on set, like injuries and bad safety precautions, which really pissed off the producer, Joseph Schneck. There are fires on set that caused major delays, ridiculous injuries, and it goes on and on, man. Anyways, back to the train.
Allow me to
Hold up. Wasn't it the most expensive shot in the movie?
It sure was. It costed $42,000, and that was a century ago. Now, where was I?
The train wreck?
Right, so the big day of the train shoot happened about a month or so in principal photography, and on July 23rd, 1926, the town of Cottage Grove, where the scene was shot, declared a local holiday with tons of town locals on scene to watch the bridge and the train collapse into the water, with the National Guard providing extras on set.
Hold up for a second. Minor detail. So production purchased 3 locomotives, one which they used for this scene.
I left that out?
You leave a lot out.
Give me a break. This segment could be its own show if we went the distance here.
But for now, you're relegated to campfire bit parts, my friend.
Whatever. So, Keaton used 6 cameras to capture the iconic scene, which is one of, if not the signature shot of the film today.
You know they left all the wreckage in the river?
Yep. Well, it was there as a public display until large sections of locomotives were salvaged for use during World War II. Fast forward to today's world, and the location isn't openly accessible to the public.
On the outcome of the movie itself, making its premiere in Tokyo some months later, The General would join the most prolific list of notable films unrecognized during their time.
Receiving poor to mediocre reviews in the press, the film suffered the fate of length and expectation. Talkies were on the horizon, and Keaton's audience didn't find his humor so appealing when positioned in violent war scenes.
Time tell all, and this story's nothing more than topical knowledge for your loquacious cinephile, or hard-to-paint film student. but nonetheless, it's also the ever-classic cinematic dumpster fire.
And it's a hell of a film. So if you haven't seen it, test your attention span for silent storytelling through visual ambition.
Visual ambition?
I didn't write this shit, man. Anyway, that's enough happened to me. I'm your host, Simon, not to be confused with tonight's guest on the show, actor Simon Prast, and you've been listening to another segment of the Cinematic Dumpster Fire right here on The Ghost of Hollywood. When we return, Poxy and Ragan will resume their conversation with Simon Prast. See you next time, everybody.
Interested in television or movies?
Then check out The Ghost of Hollywood for the best in cinema-related podcast at theghostofhollywood.com or wherever you get your podcast. Turning to X. Now, although you have plenty of feature film acting on your belt. Your primary focus on television until recently. So you end up starring as Ernest Miller in T.I. West's new film MaXXXine. But you had talked earlier. You took a half day's work. I'm assuming this was for X. And at the time, the part was smaller. Of course, it expands later. So what was the story that initially landed you the role behind the part of Ernest Miller?
There aren't many good COVID stories. Me being cast in X is a good COVID story. As you know, the world went through COVID, and for a brief window of time, New Zealand was one of the few places where people could work. And I understand that Ty was going to originally shoot in Texas, but because of COVID, made the decision to shoot in New Zealand. Because we have very good locations down here in New Zealand, and of course because of Peter Jackson and Lord of the Rings and all of the Avatar, being shot down here. They're very good crews and a very good reputation for that. And so that is my understanding of why the production ended up down here. And I just, from my agent, get this, what I like to audition as a televangelist for this American film. And as I said before, I always say yes. And I didn't see the entire script. I just had the televangelist's, sermon, if you like, and just went for it. And that Ty liked what he saw, and I got cast. And they sent me the entire script, and I was very excited to read it, of course. And as you can imagine, when you just have a cold read of X, it's not immediately apparent what the film is about.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Because it's quite graphic, and it needs just a little bit of context. But I met Ty twice. The first time when we went down there for the costume fitting and makeup tests and all that sort of thing, and we met him very briefly, and I asked him, Ty, can you just tell us what sort of film are we in? And he said, this is a love letter to the movies. And when he said that, I sort of understood. And that, of course, is kind of, what it is. And I had no idea, of course. Once we shot it, it only took half a day. We actually got through it so quickly, we ended up at lunch early. And the caterers were a little bit annoyed because we got through so quickly. But we shot it with in front of some, got a small audience together to be the congregation, if you like. So I had a bit of a live audience, and we more or less just did take after take of it. And the only real discussion that and I had was about the glasses that the character would wear. That he just wanted to, have a look and make sure. And we both came to the same conclusion. But it was very, very, very easy to do in front of the, the character came easy in front of the audience. And, I sort of, I knew what he was looking for. And we got it quickly.
And we now know that X, Pearl, and MaXXXine occur as a series in the same cinematic universe. So, during your contracting for the first film, did you know that you may be called back to reprise your role in the third installment?
It sounds like you didn't.
Yeah, I was like,
how was... Did they ever tell you?
And were you surprised when you found out?
Absolutely not.
Oh.
Absolutely not. I mean, things unfolded for me in a sort of, as you drive from from location back to the hotel, and the driver, she'd say, "Oh, Mia's playing 2 roles in this movie X," and I thought, well, that's amazing. She's playing the old lady and the young lady. And then I discovered really on my last day that they were shooting 2 films at the same time, where she'll, play the younger version of the older lady. And I thought, well, what an inspired use of resource, is that you've got everyone together and no one else in the whole world is going anywhere. And if you've got the, the idea, why not? And so they did. And, the prospect of there being a 3rd movie, you always hope for it. And I was very intrigued to discover that there was one coming. And when I heard it was going to be MaXXXine in Los Angeles, of course I was thinking, oh my God, well, I could see how her father would have some thoughts about this. But, not in my wildest hopes or dreams. Wildest hopes or dreams could I imagine.
Oh, you were like, it's like George C. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I know the latency's got us a bit, but you're like George C. Scott in Hardcore, I guess. You remember that movie when he goes to L.A. chasing his daughter? And he sees
I do remember that movie, and it was one of the movies that Ty wanted me to watch, and of course I could see that, well, yes, if he's going to do a 3rd one, then the old dad has to be there somehow.
So yeah, like when were you surprised? When did you learn that like the role had been expanded and developed so much? Because like I'm sure you were probably like, oh wow, they've got me from the the television. Yeah. Now I'm like the main villain at this thing. Like,
well, you try to keep your your wild hopes under control. But I guess it was in January of last year that I got a Zoom call from Jacob, the producer, who wanted to know if I was at all interested in coming to LA for a couple of weeks, because Ty had written a role for me in the new film. And, when he said that, and I couldn't believe he actually said those words, you can imagine that I took about 0.2 of a second to say, yes, I would love to do that. I would love to do that. And I felt so moved that Ty was so loyal, to an actor that he didn't really know so well, but we got on so well, and I thought that what he had created with the character in X was more than I could imagine, and how he had integrated that into the finale of it. And, of course, the famous line, I will not accept the life I do not deserve, to have been given that line with Mia was really special,
Yeah, I mean, and it is a nod to Hollywood. There's a lot of wild scenery and stuff in it. And then of course, you play some pretty epic, like when you're in the hallway there right before the fighting and stuff, and you're like up at the camera and you're and it's really, really like there's a lot of charisma in it. So like, you're no stranger to villainous roles, of course. So what was your approach or influence behind like playing an American televangelist? Did you take heed from like prolific characters like Billy Graham, or I know I grew up in Virginia, so I'm familiar with Jerry Falwell, but like anybody like that?
I was familiar with that. The particular televangelist that they suggested I look at was Marjo Gortner.
All right.
And there's a very good documentary on him, and he was a child evangelist, and who grew up and grew out of it, and this was on his life and on his family of televangelists and all this sort of thing. So that was my main and first reference. And then there's obviously so much on the internet that you can see. And one of the things which became clear pretty early to me was that, the performance aspect of these characters was so well, how can I put it? As an actor, you were given a very big permission slip when playing a televangelist.
All right.
Because the performance aspect inherent in the televangelism is really extraordinary to behold. I mean, I'm not a subscriber myself, and we don't really have a history of it here in New Zealand. But to see it full on, it's something else. It's something else.
Well, spoiler alert. If like in one of the most violent headshot scenes since Joe Spinell's work in Maniac. Now, do you know, or can you explain how your character's death was created for the screen?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Violent.
I'm pretty sure that changed cinema. Like when Ebert did, when Joe Spinell blew off like Tom Savini's head in the car in Maniac, that was like chaos in American cinema. This dwarfs that.
Yes.
My very first job on the movie was to fly to Wellington and to the Weta workshop down there, where they did a head mold, as you see in MaXXXine, and they created my head and the head of makeup for the movie. Escorted, I understand, the head by plane over there to LA. I think they had two of them, and on my second day on the shoot, I step out of out of makeup, and there, lying on a table, is my prone form and my head, ready to have to be shot off.
Yeah.
So it was quite a moment to see yourself lying there, just waiting patiently. But I have to say that, of course, that with all that's gone down with Alec Baldwin and, safety of firearms on set.
Yeah.
Just that moment there with Mia when she's pointing the gun at me, there was a very strict safety protocol. So I felt entirely at ease with doing that. And when you see the final moment on screen, it really is something else.
I didn't think he was going to do it. Like, I didn't, like, when I was like, I see the gun, get ready, and I'm like, and of course, it cuts, so there's not like an intertransactional scene, probably for safety, but it's like, when you see your point, you're like, all right, they're just going to off-screen it, but you kind of know you're going to go, and then they turn the camera. You're like,
It's like,
whoa! Yeah. So, I thought that was pretty
I
wild.
think that if anyone deserved an on-camera, shot of that, it was that character, and hopefully, it was a satisfying moment and a full stop for MaXXXine,
Yeah, that's pretty. Now, you said so? I'm assuming that wasn't shot on location, was it? Were you up in the Hollywood Hills shooting it?
No. They built. We drove, I guess, about an hour. I was staying in North Hollywood, and we drove about an hour out of town to the other side of the hills, if you like. And they built like a 3/4 version of the sign, where I think that we had the word wood, and the rest of it were just the half of the holly, because that's about all you saw in the shot. But it was a compelling illusion, of course, once you saw it on screen. And, I just thought so wild for the story that it should end iconically under the Hollywood sign. I don't know if you can answer that, or maybe don't want to spoil it, but did you have to play the part where you are masked, where the character's masked, like when you're riding around with Kevin Bacon or the other murders? Did you actually have to do that, or did you just do the unmasked? Yes, I did.
Oh, wow.
I did. That's me wiping my hands of the blood when he's saying that he following through. That was actually my very first night on set. And it's funny because this is what Elizabeth Bender does in the film, is that for that, when I'm wiping the blood off my hands, so the guy's not happy with the amount of blood on it. So he comes up and he's squirting the blood on my hands. He's saying, if in doubt, more blood. So that blood was personally applied by the director there, and he got exactly the amount that he wanted. And when I saw the film with Elizabeth Bender doing the same thing, I found it hugely, hugely amusing. So that was me, and watching Mia in the Pete booth. That was me, and me breaking, been putting the money in the slot and all that sort of thing.
I was about to ask, did you actually sit there and break the wood off?
Well, it was obviously a breakaway, but
yeah.
That whole sequence, I thought it was right, and I was very happy. I mean, I wanted to do all of them, but the ones that they would let me do, that was, I thought it was right for the story that he witnessed that. It's very difficult, as you can see, for the character, and fills him with a certain emotion.
Well, one last question before we go. How has your recent work in MaXXXine opened the doors for additional roles in film? And do you have a continued interest in performing as an actor for American cinema?
Well, I think you're asking the wrong person this question. I had the time of my life on MaXXXine. It was a great honor for me to work on a film. I'd never done a film in the United States before. And, to work on a Hollywood film about Hollywood in Hollywood was the adventure of a lifetime, and the opportunity to follow through on a character that began, to be part of the trilogy, if you like. What's an exciting thing for me, in my early 60s, to be a part of this amazing thing. It was a joy to do. And I just hope that a lot of people see it and, enjoy it on its own terms.
Oh yeah, we got to see it here on the big screen in a really nice movie house. So it was awesome.
Oh, same here. They flew me back for the opening at the Chinese Theatre in Hollywood. So I got to see it myself for the first time on a big screen in an iconic movie theatre. And as always, I think if you really want to enjoy a movie, you got to see it on that big screen. Did
you have anybody with you and they when they saw you go at the end, were they like, whoa, did you surprise them with it?
No, I didn't have anyone with me. I sat next to one of the producers, but it was fun. It's fun to see it with an audience, and then I got to see it with some of my friends back here in New Zealand not so long ago, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. And me getting my head blown off at the end was the best bit.
Right. All right. Well, Simon Prast, we thank you for joining us on The Ghost of Hollywood. We wish you the best of luck with what you have coming up in the future. We've enjoyed all of your work, including your most recent work on MaXXXine and the overall X series with Ty West. So thank you for coming on the show and speaking with us on The Ghost of Hollywood.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. You guys have a great day.
All right. You do the same. Take care.
Bye now.
Interested in television or movies?
Then check out The Ghost of Hollywood for the best in cinema-related podcast at theghostofhollywood.com or wherever you get your podcast. Welcome back to The Ghost of Hollywood. I'm Poxy Leonard here with Miss Ragan, and it's time to say goodbye and wrap up our 38th episode.
We'd like to thank actor Simon Prast for joining us on the show to discuss his career and recent work in MaXXXine.
We'd also like to thank our crew here at The Ghost of Hollywood, Chris, Beth, Grady, Jesse, whoever else I forgot, I don't know, all you people out there. Big shout out to you all, and then of course big shout out to Simon and Lennox for keeping the dumpster fire alive this season.
The Buster Keaton segment took me back.
Now, why?
Well, we cut our teeth on Buster Keaton, Poxy.
That's true. I forget the days of study. But, 100 years too late is, I guess, better late than never.
Yeah, anyway, that's all the nostalgia I'll allow for the next decade.
Oh, the Iron Maiden speaks again, everyone.
Watch it, buddy.
Yeah, I hear you. Anyway, for more information on The Ghost of Hollywood, check out our website at theghostofhollywood.com. And remember, The Ghost of Hollywood is streaming wherever you get your podcast.
All right, everybody, we'll be back next month as we continue to make our way through Season 4. I'm Miss Ragan here with Poxy Leonard, and until next time, good morning and good night.
You've been listening to another episode of The Ghost of Hollywood. The Ghost of Hollywood was created by Zach and Reagan Flannery. The show was written by Chris Klon and Zach Flannery, with the Cinematic Dumpster Fire segments written by Simon and Lennox Flannery, composition by Jesse Garcia, mixing by Lennox Flannery and Zach Flannery at the Ant Whistle Production Company, mastering by Grady Sizemore at the Microphonic Meltdown Studios in Portland, Oregon. For more information, please visit theghostofhollywood.com.